Hello wrestling fans. Pro Wrestle Machine here, back with another dirt sheet. Thanks as always for all the positive feedback. Remember to hit that like button and make sure you are subscribed to the channel. Let's jump in. Summary of number 471, cover dated December 20th, 1997. This issue headlines with a cover story on 2 fan riots at WWF house shows. A cover sidebar features details of Bret Hart's Nitro debut. WWF Newswire details a preemptive strike declaring the start of the Attitude Era of WWF, plus Owen Hart speaks out on Raw. Part 6 of a Torch Talk with Sandman. More letters to the editor on the Bret Vince situation. Plus Wade Keller's end notes, WCW Newswire, ECW Newswire, reports on Raw, Nitro, ECW TV, and more. Full text of newsletter. Cover story. 2 nights of fan riots at WWF live events. Michaels and Hunter refuse to wrestle 2 straight nights due to fan unruliness, leads to fights among fans. By Wade Keller, Torch editor. Fan riots broke out 2 nights in a row at WWF house shows over the weekend. December 14th in Memphis, Tennessee, and December 15th in Little Rock, Arkansas. Debris throwing by fans got so bad that the main event each night was canceled. Each night, when it was announced to the crowd that the card was over and the main event was canceled, fans became even more unruly. In Little Rock, the chaos didn't quell until over 30 minutes later. In Memphis, Shawn Michaels and Hunter Hearst Helmsley walked out before wrestling their match because fans threw garbage at them, ending the card on an extremely flat note. DX were scheduled to wrestle Jerry Lawler and Jeff Jarrett in the customized Memphis main event. Everyone was on edge leading up to the main event for a variety of reasons. Michaels' fuse was especially short because before the match Lawler put up a fuss about doing a job to him in the tag match, even though after the match Lawler, Jarrett, and Brian Christopher were booked to clear the ring of DX and end the show on an up note. Ironically, Lawler used to always tell wrestlers in the Memphis circuit when he was champion, if you can't lose to the champion, who can you lose to? Lawler pulled a Bret Hart or a Pierre Lafitte by not wanting to job in front of his hometown fans. Undertaker wrestled the last match before intermission in Memphis. When he returned from the back, his ring outfit was soaked with spit. Fans were not just throwing debris at wrestlers, but they took to spitting at them as they walked to and from the ring. Security didn't do anything about it, thinking it was part of the show. That upset the wrestlers even more. Fans had started throwing garbage at Henry Godwinn, who stood at ringside for the semifinal. When he got backstage afterward, he was so upset he began kicking at chairs in frustration with the lack of order in the arena. When Michaels, Hunter, and Chyna came to the ring for their match, Hunter did some heel mic work. Michaels followed with heel comments of his own. As fans began tossing bottles and cups at the ring, Michaels said, "We're leaving." They left, and at first it appeared to be part of an angle. Dude Love eventually came out and introduced Lawler and Jarrett, who hadn't come out yet. He also said DX would not come back out if fans didn't stop throwing things at the ring. As they talked, some debris continued to be thrown into the ring. Dude said, "Maybe if we all close our eyes and make a wish, DX will be back in the ring." The road agents were running back and forth from the ring to the locker room, making it appear as if what was happening wasn't a planned angle at all. In reality, as Dude was trying to calm the fans, Michaels and Hunter had already changed into street clothes. Management was behind Michaels and Hunter totally and agreed the situation was unsafe. The referee eventually came back out and said that due to unsportsmanlike conduct by the crowd, DX was refusing to return, and therefore declared Lawler and Jarrett the winners via forfeit. A full cup of beer was then thrown into the ring and hit Lawler in the head. Some fights in the crowd broke out as some fans were upset with those fans who threw things, costing everyone the main event match they paid to see. Security had to separate some of the fans. Fans were upset with the WWF and other fans as they left. On the WWF 900 line, Ross said the decision for DX not to return to the ring was a decision by management backstage, and not a refusal to return to the ring by Michaels and Hunter. He said the debris thrown at the wrestlers reached dangerous levels, although eyewitness reports said it didn't seem quite that excessive. Ross said the WWF made the right decision. The safety of the performers and the fans comes first. It's sad a certain small segment of ignorant drunks ruined the show for everybody else. The next day, local television affiliates in Memphis were bombarded with calls complaining about the situation. When the box office refused to offer refunds, a group of several dozen fans protested outside of the television news station. The next night in Little Rock, in an apparent coincidence, pretty much the same situation played out. Throughout the show, fans were throwing debris and spitting at the wrestlers despite several warnings throughout the night by the ring announcer to stop. Security was casual about the conduct of the fans, which allowed the situation to snowball as the card progressed. They even threw debris during a presentation of a plaque by Shawn Michaels to an area celebrity during the card. When it came time for the main event, Michaels and Chyna accompanied Hunter to the ring for his match against Ken Shamrock. DX did some mic work and fans continued to throw garbage. Michaels warned the fans if they didn't stop, he would leave. When the garbage continued to fly, DX left. Then the unruliness escalated to virtual riot proportions. Fans began throwing chairs and objects and lit firecrackers, not just plastic cups and food. Fights broke out in the crowd. Police had to separate scuffles and arrest several fans for disorderly drunken conduct. As DX returned to the back, Hunter got nailed in the face with a glass bottle. According to WWF publicist Jay Andronico, Hunter's eye was badly swollen the next day. Fans began chanting, "WCW, WCW." Adam Duvall, a fan who attended the show, said the fighting continued for nearly 30 minutes. "I went to Marilyn Manson a few weeks back and there was all this talk going into the show that he was going to eat children on stage and hand out drugs," he says. But compared to the WWF show, the Manson concert was totally organized and safe. Duvall says part of the problem was security didn't check fans as they entered the arena for objects. At Manson, they lifted everyone's shirts and checked their bags, he says. Duvall says he was asked to leave the arena by security, but before leaving he asked if it was safe for him and his younger brother outside or if there was rioting going on outside. The security officer told him everything was safe outside and security was posted out there, also. When he left, there was fighting going on in the parking lot, but there was no security. As he left the arena, he saw paramedics tending to a woman, with her child sitting next to her, getting her head bandaged. Blood was gushing from her head, he says. One fan was taken to the hospital. Police who were at the event said the chaos was just short of being classified as a full-fledged riot, but did say several arrests were made. The incident received press coverage in the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette newspaper. The article quoted a man who took his 12-year-old son to the matches. "I didn't get my money's worth," he said. The fans both nights were more boisterous than usual. Some are writing it off as just Southern fans getting drunk. Others in the industry believe poor decisions in the past few months have encouraged such behavior. Doing angles with fans running into the ring, and one fan, Steve Blackman, got a job out of it, along with the more adult-oriented, edgy nature of the WWF product has brought some of the same problems that have plagued ECW live events for the past few years to the WWF. A huge faggot chant was aimed at Goldust and Little Rock. Kids took part in the chanting. Sable took her share of chants as she showed up nearly naked for Mark Marrow's match. WCW isn't immune, either. The same night as the Little Rock incident, WCW had to deal with a half-dozen separate incidents of fans trying to enter the ring during the live Nitro in Charlotte, North Carolina. Cover sidebar. Bret debuts on Nitro added to Starrcade. By Wade Keller, Torch editor. Bret Hart made his WCW on-camera debut on the November 15th Nitro, the same night that his younger brother Owen Hart was making his breakout interview on Raw trying to fill Bret's open slot. Bret did more of his signature snickering than talking during his WCW debut, but has been thrust into being the special referee for the Larry Zbyszko vs. Eric Bischoff match. According to the storyline, the fate of WCW rests in Bret Hart's hands. WCW was clever in the way they went about announcing Bret's role at Starrcade, including letting Bret get a shot in at the WWF, and in particular Earl Hebner. Okerlund interviewed J.J. Dillon and Bischoff. Bischoff demanded to be able to pick the referee for his match against Zbyszko at Starrcade. Dillon suggested Randy Anderson or Scott Dickinson. An extremely peppy Bischoff said they were too fat and wouldn't be able to keep up with his quick moves in the ring. Bischoff suggested Kevin Nash or Syxx. Dillon wouldn't agree to that. Dillon said that since he has turned down every request the NWO has made recently, he would give in to Bischoff's request, but on one condition: he got to pick which NWO member would be the ref. Bischoff got all happy and said sure. Tony Schiavone on commentary couldn't believe what Dillon was saying. Unfamiliar music began playing and out walked Bret Hart, wearing a leather Calgary Hitman jacket with the Hart Foundation printed on the back. Bret entered the ring, took off his sunglasses, and talked to Okerlund. Bischoff celebrated as if Bret being ref made it a lock he would win. Okerlund welcomed Bret. "It took a long time to get here," Bret said. "And it's great to be here. It's great to be in Ric Flair country. So if you're looking for a referee, I would be honored to be the referee for this match." Bischoff jumped in and said, "Yo, Bret, $7.5 million a year of Ted Turner's money, you, me, for life." Bret looked at Bischoff, snickered, and said, "He's pretty happy." That wasn't necessarily part of the storyline, by the way. He added, "Do what you can, win if you can, but don't look to me for any help because nobody knows better than I do what it's like to get screwed over by a referee, so you're on your own. Jack." Bischoff responded, "Brett, $7.5 million a year, weekends off?" Brett walked away. WCW made it appear as if Brett is his own man, but could it be a Brett Bischoff setup? WCW Newswire. Nitro stays above 4.0. Despite competition from the highest-profile Monday Night Football game of the season, Nitro remained above the 4.0 rating mark yet again for the 3-hour edition of Nitro. That's the bright side. The downside is Bret Hart's Nitro debut drew a rating 0.2 lower than the previous week. The December 15th Nitro posted a 4.1 rating, 6.3 share. The first hour drew a 4.4, second a 3.9, and third a 4.1. See TV review for quarter-hour breakdowns. The replay of Nitro posted a 1.6 rating, 4.0 share, with a 1.9, 1.5, and 1.3 each hour. The live Bret Hart segment drew a 4.3, 0.3 higher than the other quarters that hour. The peak rating came at the end of the first hour before Raw and Football began, a 4.9 rating for a Hulk Hogan interview and a Lucha tag match. By comparison, Raw dropped from its recent 3.0 plus average to a 2.7 despite Owen Hart's debut and a strong TV main event. Raw drew a 2.8 first hour, and because Nitro was 3 hours, Raw's second hour rating actually dropped to a 2.6. December 13th to 14th weekend ratings, main event 1.2 4.3 share WCW SAT. 2.0 4.0 share WCW Pro Preempted. WWF Mania continued to outdraw WCW's Saturday morning show by drawing a 1.5, 4.7. WWF Superstars posted a 1.9, 5.1. Starrcade lineup changes. Before WCW decided to insert Bret Hart into Starrcade as special referee, Scott Hall was going to be the special ref for the match due to some clever maneuvering by Bischoff. The Bret idea was pretty much a last-second deal. There were mixed feelings within WCW on bringing Bret in before Starrcade, especially since expectations were the buy rate would have been awesome even without him. 4 late changes in Starrcade. Ray Jr. has been pulled from the three-way match for the Cruiserweight title, so now it's just Guerrero versus Malenko. There aren't any Mexicans on WCW's Showcase Card of the Year, which shows you how little management currently thinks of them. A lot of it is politics since Bischoff and Connon have been on the outs, plus Kevin Sullivan, who has acquired a decent amount of booking power again, isn't politically aligned with a Mexican contingent. Harlem Heat versus Rick and Scott Steiner may be changed to a 6-man match with Hall involved now that Hall isn't going to be the special ref in the Bischoff-Zbyszko match. It may end up with Hall and Connon and Scott Norton versus Ray Traylor and Steiners. Dallas Page may replace Ric Flair against Hennig if Flair's ankle isn't healthy by then. That would explain the angle at Nitro where Flair was carried out after his brief match with Hennig, who also was in no condition to wrestle, but for other reasons. Also, add Luger versus Buff Bagwell. Bischoff comments. A few final newsworthy excerpts of the Bischoff chat on Prodigy a few weeks back. Regarding the tag team division, I'm not a big fan of the tag team division. There's just not enough well-established tag combinations out there to provide a competitive arena at this point. Certainly the Steiner brothers are at the top of the list of tag teams anywhere in the world. Harlem Heat is also an incredibly effective combination. Unfortunately, with the amount of programming we have to produce, I'm not sure keeping the tag division intact as we know it is the best thing to do for our business, or the people involved. I'm not sure, quite frankly, what I will do with the tag team division, whether to abandon it, or to shore it up with talent from around the world. Regarding Jim Ross and Jim Cornette's recent comments about him, I've worked with Jim Ross. Jim Ross worked with WCW for a long time in a senior management position, very similar to the one he has now, and he was responsible in part for some of the largest and most embarrassing losses this division has had to endure. I'm sure that it's hard for him to deal honestly with the fact that his track record here at WCW from a business point of view can only be considered a dismal failure, and that after he departed this company began to grow and prosper. I'm not suggesting that Jim Ross is solely responsible, but he was by his own admission, an integral part of senior management here at that time. I know firsthand that many of the creative decisions made here were made by Jim Ross. As far as Jim Cornette is concerned, I think the industry has passed him by. I think he's a small fish in a little pond that is quickly becoming a shot glass. I hope he has a long and successful relationship with the WWF. On whether he is surprised by Nitro's success, I can't honestly say I expected to average 4.0s the way we have been. I really did believe we could average in the mid to high threes. Clearly now the question is how high is up, because I still think there is room to grow. One thing I think needs to be pointed out when you talk about the success is that it has not come at the expense of the WWF. This is a very important point. I would venture to say that the WWF prior to the launch of Nitro, that their arena attendance is higher now than it was 2 years ago. This is an important point when you look at the kind of public spin that poor little Vince McMahon is pursuing while trying to position himself as the little independent businessman being beat up upon by big, bad WCW. WCW Notebook. Scott Hall and Kevin Nash have a meeting scheduled this week to try to iron out the last few details in their contract extensions, which include raises. They have about 18 months left each of their deals, but WCW wants to get them renewed early. Expect the no beer backstage rule to be enforced once again. After TBS Big Shots came down on Bischoff for beer drinking backstage this summer, they cut it out. Lately some have been sneaking in cases of beer. On the December 8th Nitro, Jim Kelly and Bruce Smith actually jumped the rail when the lights went out and attacked Savage. They are either working an angle or Kelly and Smith got a little too enthusiastic about the skit with Savage at ringside. Raven spent 9 days in the hospital and was released on Tuesday, December 16th. He is suffering from pancreatitis attributed to heavy drinking. He has to cut back on drinking or else is at risk of getting diabetes. Referee Scott Dickinson is already back after losing the weight WCW asked him to. November 29th to 30th ratings, main event 1.1, WCW sat. 2.1, Pro 1.3. December 6th to 7th ratings, main event 1.2, WCW sat. -2.3. On WCW's internet talk show, Gene Okerlund apologized for saying Brian Pillman died of a cocaine overdose. He blamed it on faulty wire service reports, even though originally he reported he got the cocaine story from his sources in Minneapolis. Starrcade is nearly sold out and should top $500,000 in ticket sales for the first time in WCW history. Sold out actually totally sold out, fewer than 5,000 seats capacity, in less than 2 hours when tickets went on sale this past Saturday. The December 15th Nitro in Charlotte, North Carolina, drew 8,499 paid for $146,425, merch. $30,000 November 25th in Toledo, Ohio, WCW Saturday tapings, 2,939 paid, Bobby Eaton and Bobby Walker beat Steve and Scott Armstrong, Dean Malenko beat Lenny Lane, Chris Adams and Norman Smiley beat Steven Regal and David Taylor, Eddie Guerrero beat Louis Piccoli, Heat beat Glacier and Miller, Jim Duggan beat Kendall Windham, Rey Mysterio Jr. beat Dandy, Biano 4 beat Super Calo, Meng and Barbarian beat Wrath and Mortis, Page beat Hennig via DQ, Jericho beat Brad Armstrong, Yuji Nagata beat La Parka, Glacier fought Miller to a no contest, Public Enemy beat Los Villanos 4 and 5, Juventud Guerrera beat Lismark Jr., Steiners beat Disorderly Conduct, Hull beat Trailer, plus Benoit, Finlay, and Chavo Guerrero Jr. won squash matches. Diamond Dallas Page and Marcus Bagwell's mother put together a benefit show for Brian Pillman in Marietta, Georgia, on December 6th at the local high school. Hammer won a match, Glacier beat Sick Boy, Disco Inferno beat Kidman, Steven Regal beat Raven, Steiners beat Wrath and Mortis, Page beat Bagwell via DQ. Steve Smith of the Atlanta Hawks was guest timekeeper. WCW employees are moving from CNN Center in downtown Atlanta to a new nearby office site. The CNN Center office space wasn't adequate anymore for their needs. They expect to be moved in by next week. The power plant may end up being in the same building as the offices, which would be pretty convenient since previously the offices and training center were quite a drive from each other. Eric Bischoff signed a 4-year extension with Time Warner to continue to run WCW. His title has changed from Executive Vice President to President of WCW, all his duties won't significantly change. He is said to have received a nice raise, so he now makes well above the average salary of WCW wrestlers, but well below what the top tier make. Six has been told by his doctors that he cannot travel for 2 to 4 more months since his neck cannot handle the stress of carrying around baggage. The prognosis, though, is that he will recover to 100% with full mobility in his neck. He just has to go through physical therapy for the next few months. Alex Wright is still in Germany. There was talk he may need brain surgery for what has been described as something similar to, but not exactly a brain aneurysm. Brian Clark suffered an injured shoulder in a car wreck 2 weeks back when he was rear-ended when returning from an event in Marietta, Georgia, on December 6. He'll be back at the start of 1998. WCW Nitro Report. Monday Nitro, 12:15. 4.1 rating. Live from Charlotte, North Carolina, Q1 3.8. Tony Schiavone, Larry Zbyszko and Mike Tenay introduced the special 3-hour edition of Nitro. After reviewing the Sting Hulk Hogan angle that ended last week's show, they announced Bret Hart was in the building and would be appearing later on the show. Schiavone said many doubt whether Bret will actually be with the NWO. The NWO music began. Hulk Hogan, Conan, Rick Rude, Scott Norton, Buff Bagwell, Eric Bischoff, Randy Savage, Elizabeth, Vincent, Kurt Hennig, and Masa Chono came to the ring. Bischoff welcomed Chono of the NWO Japan faction to Nitro. He then said hello to Kevin Nash. Kurt Hennig then previewed his U.S. title match at Starrcade against Ric Flair. Hulk Hogan then talked about Sting, challenging him to come out and face him later on Nitro. An NWO commercial aired highlighting their taunting and beating on Zbyszko in recent months. Q2, 4.1. 1. Ray Traylor pinned Vincent at 150. The announcers talked about how Ted DiBiase has offered help to Traylor in his war with the NWO. They replayed Ric Flair's interview talking about Bret Hart's badmouthing of him over the years. An NWO promo aired with Nash talking about facing Giant. Q3, 4.7. 2. Disco Inferno pinned Yuji Nagata, W/Sonny Ono, at 4:30 with a chart buster to retain the WCW TV title. 3. David Fit Finlay beat Dean Malenko at 6:02. Eddie Guerrero provided color commentary for the third straight week during a Malenko match. He ripped on Malenko for having no facial expressions, no opinions, and being a boring road companion. Guerrero was funny as usual in his toned-down sardonic style. At 5 minutes Guerrero walked to ringside. Malenko knocked him off the ring apron, but that gave Finlay a chance to go on offense and score the clean pinfall win. Q4, 4.9. An NWO promo aired with Hogan ripping on Roddy Piper, keeping his name part of the picture. 4. Rey Mysterio Jr. and Juventud Guerrera beat La Parca and Psicosis when Juventud pinned Psicosis at 6:30. Very good tag action with a somewhat sloppy finishing sequence, although the 450 splash finisher was really good. Q5, 4.1. Gene Okerlund hosted a segment honoring the local Charlotte police force. At the start of the show, an on-screen graphic dedicated Nitro to all of the police officers who lost their lives in the line of duty. Flair and Arn presented 2 police officers with a check. Flair acknowledged the new memorial in Charlotte for police officers killed in the line of duty. Flair concluded by saying he wants Nitro to be memorable and challenged Hennig to a match later. Okerlund interviewed J.J. Dillon. He was quickly interrupted by Eric Bischoff, who said he shouldn't have to wrestle Zbyszko since Zbyszko is a former champion wrestler with a 65-pound weight advantage. Bischoff said to be fair, Dillon had to allow punches, kicks, and knockouts to be legal, as if they aren't always. Bischoff said it had to be legal to kick someone when they were down. Dillon gladly agreed. Q6, 3.5. Scott Hall came out and pulled the crowd whether they were with the NWO or with WCW. The Charlotte crowd was much more pro-WCW, anti-NWO than a typical crowd. They cut to a commercial. 5. Scott Hall pinned Chris Jericho at 2:29. An NWO commercial aired with Hall and Buff Bagwell for the New Bones and Rules Are Made to Be Broken t-shirts. Q7, 3.6. Bobby Heenan joined Schiavone and Tenay for the start of the second half of the 3-hour Nitro. Highlights aired of Meng's death grip. Meng, W/Jimmy Hart, went to the ring to face Steve McMichael. When Mongo didn't come out, cameras went backstage and showed Goldberg standing over Mongo in the back area. Dillon came up to Goldberg, screaming at him that Mongo was scheduled to wrestle. Goldberg told Dillon he would give him another victim and headed out to the ring. Before he could wrestle Meng, taking Mongo's place, Mongo attacked him from behind. They brawled as they cut to a commercial. Q8, 4.3. 6. Rick and Scott Steiner, W/Ted DiBiase, beat Scott Norton and Conan, W/Vincent, at 3:58 via DQ when Vincent interfered to retain the WCW Tag Team titles. Conan teamed with Norton since Buff Bagwell is in a singles program with Lex Luger. Norton and Conan attacked the Steiners before the match, but the Steiners quickly cleared the ring. The announcers began talking about Bret Hart making his WCW debut later. They wondered what his impact would be on Starrcade or on 1998 in general. The match ended when the Steiners set up their finisher and Vincent interfered to stop them. Ray Traylor ran to the ring to make it 3-on-3. The NWO fled. 7. Randy Savage pinned Booker T at 6:45. Q9 4.0 At 4 minutes into the match, Savage came off the top rope with a double axe handle to the floor. At 5 minutes a fan charged the ring. Security quickly intervened. Savage threw a couple worked stomps at the guy to make himself look like he was standing up to the fan. The ref went down at 5:30 when Booker dropkicked Savage. Liz stopped Booker from coming off the top rope onto Savage. Savage followed up with a top rope elbow for the win. Booker has potential as a future singles star, but is without much direction right now as he bounces between singles and tag matches. At least he and Stevie Ray aren't still facing the Steiners on every pay-per-view. The Nitro Girls performed. 8. Chris Benoit beat Scotty Riggs at 4:35. Riggs attacked Benoit at the start of the match. Benoit fought back and stomped away at his chest in the corner. For the second straight week Raven wasn't at ringside. 10A again commented that Raven's flock is without direction when Raven isn't around. In the end Benoit turned a Riggs neckbreaker attempt into the crippler crossface for a tap-out. After the match Benoit grabbed the house mic and said, quote, "Chris Benoit, nevermore." He said he'd take on all of them, but that he wanted Raven. Benoit then dove over the railing onto all of Raven's men. They threw him into the ring and beat on him. Saturn gave Benoit the rings of Saturn. Q10 4.3 Okerlund interviewed Dylan, who said Bischoff was in the back throwing a fit over stipulations. Bischoff came out, acting like he was on drugs or something, got all hyperactive, and said he wanted to pick the referee for the match. Dylan suggested Randy Anderson. Bischoff said Anderson was a fat guy just like Dylan. Dylan suggested Scott Dickinson. Bischoff said he wanted a really tall referee to look over the whole match. Dylan said he would give in and appoint an NWO member to referee, but he got to pick who it was. Bischoff agreed. Then Bret Hart came out. See cover story for more details. Q11 4.0 Okerlund was scheduled to interview Luger. Luger's music played, but Bagwell came out. They switched the music to NWO music. Buff said Luger hasn't ever and won't ever beat him. Luger then came out and made fun of Buff for celebrating DQ and countout wins as if he won the Super Bowl. Luger said while Buff was jabbering away, he checked with the production crew and they said there was time for a match between them. Buff said there was no ref. Luger brought out Nick Patrick. Buff said he needed to be warmed up to fight. Luger slapped him to the mat. The match began. 9. Buff Bagwell beat Lex Luger via DQ at 2:15. At 2 minutes Luger set up the torture rack. Vincent and Norton ran in, but Luger fended them off. Luger threw Buff over the top rope, therefore Patrick DQ'd Luger, so Buff's winning streak over Luger continued. Patrick apologized to Luger after the match, saying he had to do what he did. At ringside Buff gloated about his win. Buff continues to show signs that he'll be a major player for years to come. Q12 4.0 Another NWO commercial aired, taking shots at Dallas Page. Curt Hennig came out and accepted Flair's challenge. He rambled a bit and then, at one point asked Randy Anderson if he was on the air. Was everyone partying backstage, or what? They cut to a commercial. 10. Ric Flair beat Curt Hennig via DQ in 0:20. The match barely got started before Hall, Savage, Norton, Connon, Buff, and Vincent attacked Flair. Hennig was able to apply the figure 4, which probably elicited a sign of relief backstage from those aware enough to notice. Page ran out for the save, followed by Luger and the Steiners, who cleared the ring. Hennig was dragged to the back by the NWO, but he shouted, "I want my belt." The Steiners and Luger carried Flair to the back. Page remained in the ring and said he was feeling pretty good, then asked Hennig how he was feeling. Instead of Hennig, 2 fans charged the ring. Randy Anderson put a headlock on one fan who had already gone limp. The camera panned wide. Bischoff, Hogan, and the rest of the NWO made their way to the ring. Page retreated into the crowd. Hennig entered the ring and collapsed to the mat. How professional. Even Bischoff seemed embarrassed for him. The lights went out and a spotlight shone on Sting in the rafters. When the lights came back on, another fan had attempted to charge the ring and security was holding him back. The lights went out again, which was dangerous considering the conduct of the crowd, especially since they were throwing debris in the ring. Sting then appeared on the top of the WCW logo on the entryway Nitro set. Hogan did his best to fill the final 30 seconds, but an awkward final minute, make that a strange final 30 minutes. WK. WWF Newswire. McMahon's preemptive strike. This Monday, December 22, the Los Angeles Times plans to run a major article critical of the direction of the WWF programming in recent months. In anticipation of that article, which may be picked up off the wire by dozens of other newspapers, Vince McMahon made a preemptive strike of sorts during Raw. As a message to justify the direction of the WWF, quell advertisers' fears of associating with such controversy, and to advise parental discretion on Monday nights, McMahon spoke for 3 minutes as follows. It has been said anything can happen here in the WWF, but now more than ever truer words have never been spoken. This is a conscious effort on our part to open the creative envelope, so to speak, in order to entertain you in a more contemporary manner. Even though we call ourselves sports entertainment because of the athleticism involved, the key word is entertainment. The WWF extends far beyond the strict confines of sports presentation into the wide-open environment of broad-based entertainment. We borrow from such program niches as soap operas such as Days of Our Lives, or music videos such as those on MTV, daytime talk shows such as Jerry Springer and others, cartoons like The King of the Hill on Fox, sitcoms such as Seinfeld, and other forms of widely accepted entertainment. We in the WWF think that you, the audience, are quite frankly tired of having your intelligence insulted. We also think you are tired of the same old simplistic theory of good guys versus bad guys. Surely the era of the superhero who urged you to say your prayers and take your vitamins is definitely passé. Therefore, we have embarked upon a far more innovative and contemporary campaign that is far more invigorating and extemporaneous than ever before. However, due to the live nature of Raw and Warzone, we encourage some degree of parental discretion when it comes to the younger audience allowed to stay up late. Other WWF programs on USA such as Saturday Morning Live Wire and Sunday Morning Superstars, where there is a 40% increase in the younger audience, obviously however need no such discretion. We are responsible television producers who work hard to bring you this outrageous, wacky, wonderful world known as the WWF. For some 50 years the WWF has been an entertainment mainstay in North America and all over the world. One reason for that longevity is that as the times have changed, so have we. I am happy to say this new vibrant creative direction has resulted in a huge increase in television viewership, for which we thank USA Network and TSN for allowing us to have the creative freedom, but most especially would like to thank you for watching. Raw and Warzone are definitely the cure for the common show. Although the logic that because commercials during WWF programming are often aimed at a young audience means the WWF is irresponsible to air adult themes is a fallacy of reasoning, the WWF does face legitimate criticism for airing controversial content from Raw on their Saturday and Sunday morning programs. The LA Times article is expected to feature quotations from Eric Bischoff and advertising executives and point out examples of the recent direction of WWF programming, from strip poker to Goldust and Luna. WCW, not just the WWF, is concerned with what the potential impact will be of the story. It could blow over, or it could lead to a string of similar stories and advertisers abandoning wrestling altogether. Owen Hart speaks out on Raw. Owen Hart established that he is no longer just Bret's little brother, but now is gunning to be a top-tier wrestler with a more serious side than he has shown before. On the December 15th Raw is War, he gave his first interview since the Bret Hart controversy. At the start of Warzone, Vince McMahon walked to the ring and asked for the house mic. He scolded Owen Hart for endangering the safety of ringside fans by his recent antics. McMahon said Owen is still under WWF contract and therefore as his boss ordered him to report to the ring right away. Owen made his way to the ring. Fans chanted, "Owen, Owen." When Owen entered the ring, McMahon said, "Who do you think you are?" Owen removed his sunglasses and said, "Who the hell do you think you are? You think I owe you a god, Ed apology? I don't owe you a god, Ed thing. I'm sick and tired of trying to please everybody around here. And the bullsh stops right here." Fans popped. McMahon told Owen to calm down. Owen continued, "My brother Bret, and Neidhart and Bulldog, they did what they had to do and now it's time for me to do what I have to do and that is remain right here in the World Wrestling Federation." The fans popped again. Owen poked McMahon in the chest and said, "I spent 9 years breaking my back day after day to earn a reputation in this company and nobody, is going to run me out of this company and you know exactly who I'm talking about." McMahon said he must be talking about Shawn Michaels, and that now he is obsessed with getting the only belt that has eluded him in his WWF years. Owen responded, "How stupid are you? Is that what you think this is about? You think I give a damn about a worthless title? A piece of leather with tin on it? This is about real life, my reputation, my respect, my dignity. McMahon, don't you get me wrong. I am telling you exactly what I am going to do and that is make Shawn Michaels' life a living hell. You can call me the sole survivor or the black sheep, I really don't give a sh. Shawn Michaels, this is not a game, this is real life. You started it and now it's time for this little nugget to end it." The announcers talked about Owen now having more focus and more purpose than ever. Ross said Owen is a changed man. The WWF hopes Owen fills Bret's shoes and believes he made a good start with a strong showing behind the mic. Wrestlers were joking backstage that Owen, even when he is legitimately mad, doesn't swear nearly as much as he did during his interview on Raw. Owen is being looked at by some family members, including Bret, as a villain for returning to the WWF, yet no one has yet to offer to pay him the salary he would lose if he were to have continued to sit out. The phrase being used is Owen is being torn between his crazy brother and his evil boss. Friends of Owen say part of him is looking forward to not being in Bret's shadow for the first time in his career. Heart Foundation update. In order for British Bulldog to take advantage of the WWF's offer to legally negotiate with WCW or Japan Promotions during a 30-day window, he would need to buy out his contract for $150,000 first. But until he spent the $150,000, he wouldn't be allowed to legally have even preliminary discussions with another organization. Because WCW is concerned with tampering, especially because of the outstanding lawsuit the WWF has against them for doing so with Kevin Nash and Scott Hall, it might be tough for Bulldog to even get a solid under-the-table offer. Because of that, Bulldog may end up staying in the WWF after all. All sources indicate the odds are now better than 50-50 he'll remain in the WWF once he recovers from knee surgery. His knee surgery went well and he is expected back as soon as February. No word yet on whether WCW has had formal talks with Jim Neidhart, but because of the tone of the WWF's comments about him, it sounds as if the WWF is done using him. Shamrock UFC match off. The Japanese promoters who assured UFC they had an agreement from Nobuhiko Takada to fight Ken Shamrock at the December 21st UFC event overstated their position. Takada declared in Japan last week he is still injured and has no plans to enter UFC, but instead wants a rematch against Rickson Gracie. Shamrock signed a contract with UFC, but he had veto power over who his opponent would be. Shamrock has told people he would be willing to face Tank Abbott or even Vitor Belfort on short notice. However, the Japanese promoters who were picking up the estimated $300,000 tab for Shamrock to be released by the WWF for one night on pay-per-view aren't willing to spend that money if Shamrock isn't fighting a major Japanese name, i.e. Takada. As a result, they pulled their offer. Shamrock, after 3 days of training in Dallas, was told by UFC officials the news and by Thursday was back on the road with the WWF. UFC and the WWF ended up in a difficult situation. As part of the Shamrock contract, the WWF agreed to plug the UFC event on their television network. They did so over the weekend, even though Ken Shamrock is no longer scheduled to fight on the card. Speculation is that the WWF wants to live up to every detail of the contract in case they have a case to sue the Japanese promoters for not paying them for rights to Shamrock and dumping him despite his willingness to fight another opponent. Considering McMahon told Bret he might have to start missing payments on his contract if Bret didn't restructure his contract, to say he outright threatened to do that would be overstating it. The Shamrock situation is a bit ironic. Raw/Shotgun tapings. December 11th in Lowell, Massachusetts. At the Memorial Auditorium, the WWF taped the December 22nd edition of Raw is War and the December 27th edition of Shotgun Saturday Night. In the dark match opener, Steve Blackman, fan from the stands from Survivor Series, pinned Brian Walsh. Taped for Shotgun, Recon and Sniper beat Matt and Jeff Hardy. Flash Funk pinned Farouk while Farouk was looking at Rocky Maivia. The Headbangers beat Savio and Miguel via DQ when Jose and Jesus interfered. Mark Henry beat the Sultan via bear hug submission. Tom Brandi pinned Barry Houston. Taped for Raw is War, Degeneration X came to the ring. Shawn Michaels and Hunter Hearst Helmsley were wearing bathrobes and said they had a Christmas present for the fans. They took off their robes to reveal boxers, but then stripped off those to reveal jock straps with Mary written on Hunter's cheeks and X-Man written on Michaels's cheeks. Sergeant Slaughter came to the ring and told Michaels he had to defend the European title later on the show or be stripped for lack of recent title defenses. Slaughter said he was going to choose the opponent and Michaels agreed. Slaughter announced Michaels had to defend against Hunter. Undertaker fought Rocky Maivia to a no contest. After Maivia was planted with the tombstone, Kane came to the ring and beat up Undertaker. Undertaker offered no resistance. The European title match was introduced, but Owen Hart attacked Hunter. The match never took place and Hunter and Michaels returned to the back. Some fans booed, believing the WWF teased an intriguing match, but wasn't going to deliver. Mark Marrow pinned Scott Taylor with a TKO. Sable came to the ring with a Rudolph the Reindeer costume. After the match, Marrow continued to work over Taylor until Tom Brandi made the save. Sable then stripped off her costume to reveal a Santa-like suit and wished the crowd a Merry Christmas. Kurgan pinned 8-Ball. Ken Shamrock made D'Lo Brown tap out. After the match, Maivia challenged Shamrock to an IC title match at the Royal Rumble and told Shamrock that it was his lucky day. He said, D'Lo, Farouk, let's get out of here. Farouk glared at Maivia, teasing their seemingly inevitable breakup. Rocky versus Farouk at WrestleMania? Goldust came out dressed as a Christmas tree and Luna wore a demonic Santa's helper outfit. They began reciting "'Twas the Night Before Christmas." Santa Claus came out and began handing out candy to the crowd. Goldust yelled to Santa to go away, then continued his reading. Santa, though, entered the ring and nailed Goldust with his bag and then clotheslined him. Santa was revealed to be Vader Claus. Then the European title match was reintroduced. All 3 DX members entered the ring. After a couple of minutes of stalling, Michaels and Hunter locked up. Hunter pushed Michaels, who took an exaggerated bump onto his back. Hunter then bounced back and forth between the ropes 5 or 6 times and delivered a purposefully weak splash, then covered Michaels, and scored the 3 count to win the European title. Michaels took the mic and began to cry. He said how emotionally draining the match was for him. As DX was torturing the crowd with their antics, a casket was wheeled to ringside for the dark match. In the dark main event, Undertaker beat Hunter in a casket match. All 3 DX members ended up in the casket. Expect some controversy in about 9 months, huh? Michaels and Hunter came back to life and were flashed by a well-endowed female fan. John Law, Vontae. On the road. November 21st in Richmond, Virginia. 7,438 paid. Mero beat D'Lo. Crush and Chains and 8-Ball and Skull beat Los Boricuas. Christopher beat Taka. Legion of Doom beat Road Dogg and Badass. Henry beat Sultan. Shamrock beat Kama. Dude beat Rocky. Undertaker beat Hunter. November 28th in Cleveland, Ohio. 8,089 paid. Miguel and Savio and Jose beat Chains and Skull and 8-Ball. Shamrock beat D'Lo. Mero beat Flash. Kane beat Vader. Legion of Doom and Austin beat Farouk and Rocky and Kama. Neidhart beat Sultan, Badass and Road Dogg beat Headbangers. Undertaker beat Hunter in a casket match. December 6th in Providence, RI, 7,105 paid. Christopher beat Taylor. Miguel and Jose and Jesus beat Chains and Skull and 8-Ball. Kane beat Vader. Shamrock beat D'Lo. Legion of Doom and Dude beat Farouk and Kama and Rocky. Flash beat Barry Hardy. Road Dogg and Badass beat Headbangers to retain WWF tag belts. Austin, releasing Undertaker, beat Hunter. December 12th in Chattanooga, Tennessee, Drew 6,855 paid for $102,899. Merchandising $53,615. December 13th in Nashville, Tennessee, at the Nashville Arena, 5,345 for $93,934. Merch. $44,609. Brian Christopher beat Scott Taylor. Rocky and Kama beat Skull and 8-Ball. Henry beat Spellbinder with a power slam. Jarrett and Lawler. W/Dude Love beat Road Dogg and Badass by a DQ. Before the match, Bart Gunn returned and attacked former tag partner Badass. Godwins beat Headbangers in a country whipping match. Goldust and Luna came out and attempted to read Silent Night. Ken Shamrock beat Hunter. W/China, Kane. W/Paul Bearer beat Chains. Mero. W/Sable beat Flash. And Undertaker beat Michaels via DQ, so Michaels retained the WWF title. Chris Wheeler. December 14th in Memphis, Tennessee, at the Pyramid, 5,078 for $72,973. Merch. $29,000. 8-Ball beat D'Lo Brown in the opener. 8-Ball got good crowd heat. D'Lo went for a moonsault, but missed, enabling 8-Ball to get the pin. Brian Christopher beat Scott Taylor with a Tennessee Jam. Christopher had some crowd support, but Memphis fans also chanted Jerry's Kid at him. He wrestled more of a WWF Hill-style match than his Memphis style. A few good high spots. Taylor slapped a cap off of a kid's head which got a pop. So-so match. Mark Henry beat Spellbinder after a power slam. This match wouldn't pass muster at the Big One Expo Center on an old USWA card. Bad. Road Dogg and Badass beat the Headbangers to retain the WWF Tag Team titles. A pretty good match. Mosh took the bulk of the beating during the match through double teaming. Eventually Thrasher got the hot tag and was able to cover Road Dogg. Badass hit him with one of the tag belts without the ref seeing. He put Road Dogg on top and the ref turned to count the pin. Undertaker beat Rocky Maivia, D'Lo and Kama in a casket match. D'Lo and Kama interfered during the match. Undertaker eventually gave Rocky the tombstone and put him in the casket for the win. Marc Mero W/Sable beat Flash Funk. Flash missed a top rope splash and Mero followed with a low blow for the victory. Sable checked on Flash's condition after the match. Mero berated her, stomped on Flash some more, then returned to the back. Kane W/Paul Bearer beat Chains. Bearer got heel heat for his mic work before the match. A pretty standard Kane match with Chains getting brief offense and clotheslining Kane over the top rope. Kane, though, landed on his feet, returned to the ring, and eventually used the tombstone for the win. Kane also got a big pop, behind only Undertaker and Sable. In the semifinal match of the night, Ken Shamrock beat Phineas Godwin. W/Henry Godwin. Standard fare. Shamrock got the win with an ankle lock submission. Then came the main event of DX vs. Lawler and Jarrett that was called off due to fan rowdiness. See cover story, Chuck Morris. Shotgun Saturday night. The December 6th Shotgun opened with Dude Love beating Marc Mero via DQ. Mero was DQ'd for using a low blow. Throughout the match Mero kept complaining about Sable getting so much attention from the fans. He forcibly led her away from the ring and back to the dressing room after the match. Ken Shamrock beat Mark Kyle with an armbar submission in a brief squash match. They re-aired the Goldust and Luna interview from Raw. Legion of Doom beat Roger Hill and Frank Parker. Hill has wrestled under the name Roger Anderson in the past and has also wrestled as Roger Boone when in WCW. Hill and Parker wrestle locally as Death and Destruction for independent groups in the Carolina, Virginia, Tennessee area. During the match, Jim Cornette mentioned that the Legion of Doom were destroying their opponents so badly, they might as well call them Death and Destruction. In the main event, Brian Christopher and Aguila beat Taka Michinoku and Flash Flanagan when Christopher pinned Flanagan. The December 13th Shotgun was hosted by Jim Cornette and, replacing Jim Ross, Michael Cole. In the opener, Undertaker beat Sultan with a tombstone. Then highlights aired from Raw of the Steve Austin-Vince McMahon angle. In first-run footage, they showed what happened after the show went off the air. McMahon and Austin got into it again and had to be held apart by officials. McMahon grabbed a chair and swung at Austin with it. Vader beat Farouk. A ton of outside interference by Nation of Domination members. In the end, Rocky's interference backfired and Vader ended up falling on Farouk and scoring the pin. Doug Furnas and Phil LaFawn beat the Hardy Boys. The Hardys took a ton of dangerous bumps, including one of the Hardys going for a springboard moonsault to the floor, but slipping off the rope and landing on his back on the floor. In the main event, the Headbangers fought Recon and Sniper to a DDQ in a really poorly executed match. Tim Whitehead. WWF Notebook. Royal Rumble lineup, Michaels vs. Undertaker, Legion of Doom vs. New Age Outlaws, Gunn and Road Dogg, Rocky vs. Shamrock Mexican Minis, Vader vs. Goldust, and 30-man Rumble. Terry Funk is talking with the WWF about a 3-month program early next year. WrestleMania's lineup is taking shape as follows: Michaels vs. Austin for the WWF title, Owen vs. Hunter, Jarrett vs. Bulldog, if Bulldog stays, or else throw Jarrett into a 3-way with Owen and Hunter, Rocky vs. Farouk for the IC title, and Undertaker vs. Kane, plus probably Shamrock vs. Dan Severn. A deal with Severn is said to be imminent, but not a done deal yet, and Legion of Doom vs. Road Dogg and Gunn, Taka defending the light heavyweight title, and perhaps Cactus Jack in a singles match. That leaves Ahmed Vader, Goldust Mero, DOA, Los Boricuas D-Lo, Truth Commission, Mark Henry, and the Blackjacks all left to fill 1 or 2 other slots at the most. Crush was given permission by the WWF to have talks with WCW. Crush was upset that he was used as fodder for Kane a few weeks back on Raw. Then Kane dropped him pretty hard on his head during the angle, which upset him even more. He went home and told the front office he was disgruntled. He has 4 years left on a contract with a $200,000 downside. Even though the WWF had plans to push the DOA, McMahon and Ross jumped at the chance to unload his downside. Crush was signed to the $200,000 downside when the WWF was panicking a bit over the roster depletion and wanted everyone signed to long-term deals. That is one of the frenzies that cost Bruce Pritchard his power and led to Jim Ross gaining power behind the scenes. As it stands now, Crush says he has a deal with WCW on the table that is slightly better than his WWF deal and he probably will take it, so the DOA will be down to 3 members. Legion of Doom will be out until Royal Rumble. They are taking a hiatus for personal reasons, not because of injury or suspension. Shawn Michaels on reports of occasional friction between himself and fellow clique members, Kevin Nash, Scott Hall, and Sean Waltman, Charleston Post and Courier. We all get along wonderfully and probably talk every week or every other week. What bothers people about us is that we're true friends, and true friends are very rare in this business. In case anyone plans to go metal detecting in a river, Austin threw the IC belt off of a bridge that wasn't far from the site of the Raw tapings. The walking General Sullivan Bridge is in New Hampshire between Greenland and Dover Point, just outside of Durham. Undertaker missed the house show the night before the DX in Your House because his resting heart rate was up to 160 BPM. He was taken to the hospital and treated for stress, due to a serious family illness. He hadn't eaten all day. He went to a doctor in Nashville this past weekend and was also diagnosed with 2 hairline fractures in his lower vertebrae and his hip is badly bruised, so physically he's in rough shape, too. He's also scheduled to see a cardiologist about the heart rate, although expectations are it was just a one-time problem due to extreme stress. Dude Love suffered a legit rib injury from the bump that he took off the stage on the December 15th Raw, taped December 9th, therefore he was inactive over the weekend, but did appear at all the shows as a corner man. Right now it is clear that Dude Love is feuding with Road Dogg and Gunn. Since the talk is that the Dude Love character will be taking a rest and Cactus Jack will return full-time for a while, it seems logical Cactus's partner in his feud with Dogg and Gunn will be Terry Funk if he comes to terms with the WWF. The February pay-per-view could feature Dogg and Gunn versus Cactus and Funk. Keep in mind that WWF ref Jimmy Cortez is Canadian. That could be used as part of an upcoming storyline with Canada getting revenge for the Bret Hart finish. There is some concern over airing the Michaels and Hunter jockstrap skit on the December 22nd Raw because of the LA Times story that is coming out. It's not just the nudity that has some in the WWF concerned, it's also that Michaels and Hunter are taking swigs from a bottle of Jack Daniels during the skits. It might be too much coming on the heels of Austin drinking beer right after driving his truck into the arena. The WWF is holding a 12-day training camp, January 2nd to 13th, run by Tom Pritchard and Pat Patterson for a dozen or so WWF wrestlers to help them learn better psychology and pacing. Mark Merrill will be there helping out, as he did at WCW's Power Plant. WWF Raw Report. Raw is War, 12/15. 2.7 rating. Taped December 9th in Durham, North Carolina, Q1 2.8. Jim Ross, Michael Cole, and Kevin Kelly introduced the program. Michael Cole interviewed Undertaker in mid-ring. He talked about facing Shawn Michaels for the WWF title at Royal Rumble. Undertaker said he has only lost one casket match in his stay in the WWF, and it took 10 men to get him into the casket. He said he counts all of the members of DX and doesn't equal 10. Then the lights went out and Kane and Paul Bearer came out. Bearer talked about what a pretty picture it was when Undertaker and Kane stood nose to nose. He said the only thing missing from the family picture was the parents, who Undertaker murdered. Bearer gave Undertaker one more chance to fight his brother. Kane slapped Undertaker. Kane went to slap him again, but Undertaker blocked it. They locked into a nose-to-nose stare. Undertaker then walked away. Q2 3.0. They showed highlights of Jerry Lawler and Brian Christopher attacking Taka Michinoku the previous week on Raw. 1. Taka Michinoku beat Jerry Lawler via DQ at 5:50. Before the match, Lawler talked about his huge weight advantage over Taka. A minute into the match, Ross broke in with a voice-over plug for UFC, mentioning that Ken Shamrock's younger brother Frank would be competing for the UFC middleweight title. At 2 minutes, Taka hit the Taka plunge springboard off the top rope onto Lawler on the floor. When Lawler went for a dropkick, Ross called it Lawler's first dropkick of the 90s. Ross pointed out that Lawler began pro wrestling before Taka was born. At 5:20, Lawler gave Taka his piledriver. Rather than go for the cover, he climbed to the second rope and came off with a fist drop. Taka moved, then gave Lawler the Michinoku driver. Christopher slid into the ring at the 2 count to stop the pin. They double-teamed Taka after the match, but Christopher ended up accidentally hitting Lawler. Q3 3.0. Legion of Doom talked about facing DX in the TV main event. Hawk called DX, Michael Bolton before the haircut, Fabio, and RuPaul. It replayed Vince McMahon ordering Steve Austin to forfeit the IC title to Rocky Maivia on last week's show and Austin gladly complying. The Nation of Domination came to the ring. Rocky referred to himself as the best damn Intercontinental Champion there ever was. Farouk tried to interject, but Rocky said, "With all due respect, the champ is talking." Farouk didn't look pleased. Rocky referred to himself as the People's Champion and said, "Last week Austin stole my..." "No, he stole our," pointed to the crowd, "Intercontinental title." He ordered Austin to return the belt. Steve Austin then walked out and told Rocky he doesn't order him to do anything. He told Rocky he is in way over his head and then left. Rocky said Austin has 1 hour to return with his property or else The Rock and the Nation will search the arena, find you and beat you. Q4, 2.62. Dude Love beat Road Dogg W/Billy Gunn at 4:23. Ross said that Austin had left the arena. When Badass and Road Dogg came to the ring, Badass did the mic work, doing his best Stan Lane imitation. They wore Eric Cartman t-shirts from South Park. Ross wouldn't hone up to liking South Park, almost as if he didn't know what the show was. Announcers referred to Gunn as BA instead of Badass. Ross suggested they call themselves New Age Outlaws. Gunn said he liked the nickname. Their previous nickname was Southern Justice, but it wasn't played up much. At 3 minutes, Dude went for the mandible claw and ripped out some of his hair. The announcer said he was flashing back or morphing to Mankind. Dude won with a double-arm DDT. Gunn tried to hit Dude with a chair after the match. Dude blocked it and brawled with Gunn up the rampway. Gunn and Road Dogg suplexed Dude on the steel stage. Fans chanted for Legion of Doom. Gunn and Road Dogg eventually threw Dude off the stage and onto a table on the floor, although he barely grazed the table, which was supposed to break his fall. The ref called for help and Gunn and Road Dogg checked on him, but then stomped away at him some more. After a commercial, they showed Dude being helped up while grasping his left shoulder and ribs. 3. Mark Henry beat Brooklyn Brawler at 1:52. They pointed out that Henry broke his ankle last year, which slowed his progress into wrestling. Ross said not to look for finesse. Henry won with a body slam, elbow drop, and bear hug. Nothing special. They recapped Owen Hart's return. Q5, 2.9. Ross, joined by Jim Cornette on color, introduced Warzone. No fireworks this week to introduce the second hour. Vince McMahon walked to the ring and interviewed Owen Hart. See WWF Newswire. When Ross said, "This could be a PJ Carlesimo situation right here," Cornette said, "Ooh. It's time for Cornette to watch ESPN, or CNN for that matter, and no, not old tapes of CNN from the 80s. Ross said very few people have talked to Owen since his return, but those who have talked to him say he's a changed man. At the end of the segment, McMahon then called for uniformed security to enter the ring. He said it wasn't for his own safety, but was for the safety of the fans. He said, "Next week right here you're going to come into the ring down the ramp like every other WWF superstar, and you are going to compete in the ring just like any other WWF superstar. You're not going to run over any more ringside fans. All right?" Ross said he didn't like the look in Owen's eyes because he's been under a lot of stress. Owen walked up to McMahon and grabbed him by the lapels, then pushed him away. Owen left and security accompanied him. Fans chanted, "Owen, Owen." McMahon signaled for Owen to leave the building. Ross asked, "Has Owen Hart ever been more popular?" Really good segment. Owen delivered a good serious-style interview and was believable in expressing his anger and edgy emotion. Q6, 2.5. 4. Tom Brandi beat Sultan, W/Iron Sheik, at 3:47. Sultan yelled that Brandi is just a jabroni. As Sultan consulted with Sheik, Brandi rolled up Sultan from behind for the win. As Brandi celebrated his win, Mero low-blowed him from behind. Fans chanted, "Sable, Sable." Ross called Mero insecure. Mero's gimmick was written off by many early on, but it's working out well as a heat generator. They recapped the Austin-Rocky feud, including what happened after Raw went off the air last week when Austin knocked McMahon off the ring apron and McMahon responded with rage and went after Austin with a chair. Cornette said McMahon later apologized for overreacting to Austin's inadvertent bump into him. Q7, 2.4. The Nation of Domination returned to the ring. Rocky said according to his Rolex, his time is up. He said Austin has pissed The Rock off, so the Nation of Domination is coming to get his belt. The Titantron then showed Austin standing on a bridge with the IC belt. Austin threw snorkeling gear into the river, followed by an oxygen tank, flippers for swimming, a cell phone so he can call him when he finds the belt, a pager so he can 316 Rock and return, and then finished by throwing the IC belt into the river. Austin invited Rocky to go dive in after the belt. The Vince McMahon commentary aired. See WWF Newswire. Afterward, Cornette joked that he didn't know the meaning of the word extemporaneous. Considering his skills in that area, it's amazing he didn't know the meaning of the word. 5. Steve Blackman beat Jose W/Los Boricuas at 1:36. Los Boricuas' live rapping on the way to the ring is a nice addition. Ross again plugged the UFC event coming up this Sunday on pay-per-view. He said Blackman might be at home in a UFC environment. It was bizarre seeing Blackman get the spotlight on him on Raw while on Nitro. Fans were charging the ring one segment after another, following Blackman's lead. Raw is following Nitro's early format of matches, less than 2 minutes, used to help establish guys like Blackman and Henry without having them wrestle so long that viewers get bored and turn the channel. Q8 2.5, Michaels, Hunter, and China reacted to Owens' interview. Michaels and Hunter did rock, paper, scissors to decide which of them would rid the WWF of Owens, since they've already gotten rid of Bret, Bulldog, and Jim Neidhart. Hunter won, so it's his job to get rid of Owen, apparently. 6. The Legion of Doom beat Shawn Michaels and Hunter Hearst Helmsley, W/China, via DQ at 10:04. Michaels took some excellent bumps early in the match. Cornette did a very good job on color commentary talking about tag team strategy. At 9:10, Animal got the hot tag. As Animal power slammed Michaels and shoulder tackled Hunter, Road Dogg and Bill Gunn came to ringside. Road Dogg knocked out Hawk with an ether rag. China gave Animal a low blow from behind in the ring to prompt the DQ. After the match, Gunn shaved Hawk's head bald. Cornette said, "In 15 years nobody has treated the Road Warriors like this." Ross called it big-time history. Michaels and Hunter helped Dogg and Gunn powerbomb Animal off the apron and through a ringside table. They beat on Hawk for a couple more minutes. Good show. WK. ECW Newswire. On the road. December 11th in Rochester, New York, they announced the start of the show would be delayed because Sandman was out buying beer. He came back about 10 minutes past the scheduled start time with a case of beer. In the opening segment, Rob Van Dam and Bill Alfonso came out and said that Sabu was in Florida with Vince McMahon. They talked about injuring Tommy Dreamer. Dreamer came out. Van Dam beat on him. Sandman made the save. In the opening match, Tommy Rogers and Jerry Lynn beat Roadkill and another jobber. Just Incredible beat Chris Chetty with a spinning tombstone. Mikey Whipwreck beat Paul Diamond, W/Madam Chastity, with the Frank and Mikey, which they messed up badly. After Mikey hit the mat, Diamond flipped and landed directly on Mikey. Poor finisher, solid match. Taz beat Pitbull 2, W/Pitbull 1, in a virtual squash. Pitbull 1 wore a WCW hat to get heel heat. After the match, Taz grabbed an Austin Fears Taz sign and ripped on Austin, calling him a guy who wants to be me and a pussy, among other things. He called the WWF a circus fed, a somewhat dated reference given the WWF's current direction. FBI beat Axel Rotten and Balls Mahoney thanks to heel ref Jeff Jones. Al Snow, W/The Head, beat Supernova, W/Blue Meanie and Wild Bill. The BWO were supposed to be heels, but got cheered anyway. Bubba Ray Dudley pinned Spike Dudley. After the match, heel ref Jones went after Jim Molyneux, which prompted Devon and Big Dick to run back out and interfere. New Jack then made the save, but eventually Big Dick and Devon were fighting New Jack on the floor and Bubba pinned Spike. The fans popped big for New Jack's intro and the fight between the refs. In the main event, Sandman beat Rob Van Dam. Van Dam had Sandman beat and started to do mic work when Fonzie said the only person whose ass they hadn't kicked yet was Beulah's. She came out, beat on Fonzie, and then DDT'd him for a big pop. He then threw powder in Van Dam's eyes for the pin. Van Dam got his heat back with mic work after the match. Chris Condito and Lance Storm and Stevie Richards were advertised on the program, but did not appear. No explanation was given. Cronus was seen on the soundstage, but never made an official appearance. Kevin Riedel. December 13th in Buffalo, New York, Snow beat Diamond, Credible beat Whipwreck, Chetty beat Pitbull 2, Condito and Storm beat FBI and Balls and Axel, Dudley's beat Jerry Lynn and Tommy Rogers, Taz fought Dreamer to a no contest, Van Dam beat Rogers, Blue Meanie beat Jason, Sabu beat Sandman. Stevie Richards update. Stevie Richards missed all 3 events this past weekend. He said he had a doctor's appointment last Tuesday and his reflexes weren't where they should have been. Apparently the prognosis he describes is similar to Steve Austin's in that Richards is risking paralysis by taking bumps, therefore he may once again give thought to retirement. Richards wasn't exactly welcomed back into the ECW locker room with open arms. There is suspicion within ECW that he bailed out, not because of injury, but because of how ostracized he had become. He has heat with Tommy Dreamer because of the circumstances of his departure from ECW last time. He has heat with Sandman because Sandman and Raven are friends and Richards and Raven had a falling out in WCW. He has heat with Taz because Richards wrestled rough against Taz trainee Danny Morrison. In fact, the belief is the Richards-Chetty match at ECW Arena was so bad because Chetty wasn't cooperating with Richards on purpose to get back at him for the Morrison match the week before. Taz chewed out Richards on the phone, including being critical of him for doing the cross-arm stance, which is sort of Taz's signature. Richards may end up in the WWF or may end up leaving wrestling for a while. He lost credibility with some after fabricating a story about traveling to Europe to see his mother, when in fact he was lying low so he could make a surprise return on the pay-per-view. Notebook. Sabu missed the December 11th and 12th events because of a jaw injury he suffered the previous weekend, although he was back in action December 13th at the TV tapings in Buffalo. Sabu's injury was pretty scary looking. In Waltham, Massachusetts, he went for a triple jump moonsault, but ended up landing mouth first on an extended table leg. His mouth went right into the table leg and he came up bloody and spitting out pieces of teeth. He returned to the locker room, only to return a few minutes later, which got him an ovation from the fans. Instead of going to the hospital afterward, he superglued the cuts on his mouth shut to stop the bleeding, taped up his face, and wrestled the next night. Over the weekend, wrestlers were upset because the checks for the second pay-per-view haven't been passed out yet, and it's already several weeks past the third pay-per-view. Also, the wrestlers who are going to Japan this weekend were getting nervous since Heyman hadn't handed out the plane tickets yet. Because the flights were booked late, the flight to Japan, including a couple of stops, is going to total 19 hours. Scheduled matches: December 20th in Osaka features Gladiator and Mr. Ganasuke and Yukihiro Kanemura vs. Sandman and Dreamer and Funk. December 21st in Nagoya has Zen, Atsushi Onita and Gladiator and Haido and Hideki Hasaka and Tetsuhiro Kuroda vs. ECW, Dudleys and Terry Funk and Sandman and Dreamer. December 22nd in Tokyo at Korakuen Hall may feature Sabu vs. Sandman, which will be taped for ECW TV in the US. Editor's note: we're still looking to receive reports more consistently on many of ECW's regular stops. Lately, we haven't been getting even one report on many of their weekend house shows. If you attend any future ECW events, same goes for WWF and WCW events also, including TV tapings, and can file a detailed or semi-detailed report on the matches via fax, email, or voicemail. Your correspondence is appreciated by all and you will receive credit, unless you request otherwise. We always use the reports we get on events. When more than one reader files a rundown of a show, it adds details and reliability to the eventual published report. ECW TV Report. Extreme Championship, 12-13. Taped December 6th at ECW Arena. The show opened with Joey Styles in mid-ring announcing it was the largest crowd in ECW Arena history. Fans chanted ECW, ECW, then shifted to a New York Sucks chant. ECW continues to play up the Hart Foundation-inspired rivalry between New York and Philly. Styles announced that the Gangstonators were attacked by the Dudleys before the match where they lost the ECW tag titles. Styles introduced Cronus, who came out sporting a cast on his right arm. Before Cronus could say anything, the Dudleys came out. Styles freaked, saying, "No way, this is not a match. This is bullshit. This man is hurt." Bubba Ray Dudley told Styles to leave. When Styles didn't, Bubba yelled, "Get the F out," and Styles leapt out of the ring. As Cronus was surrounded by several Dudleys, he chose a jump spin wheel kick as his defense, which needless to say didn't scare away the Dudleys. Bubba went to hit Cronus, but oddly decided not to when New Jack's music began to play. He threw the chair to the mat in frustration instead. New Jack then threw his garbage can of apparatus into the ring and beat up D-Von and Bubba Ray on his own. New Jack gave D-Von a low blow with a pool cue. At ringside, Big Dick choked Cronus. Spike Dudley ran out to help New Jack and Cronus and gave them the acid drop, a face-first DDT off the second rope. The Dudleys took over eventually, beating on Spike. 6 minutes of brawling later, the referee stepped into the ring and Bubba pinned Spike to end the match that was never proclaimed a match in the first place. The ECW opening montage then aired 12 minutes into the program. 1. Mikey Whipwreck pinned Justin Credible, W/Jason, in 6 minutes. When Mikey set up the whippersnapper, Jason ran into the ring. Mikey leapfrogged to the mat and floored Jason, then pinned Justin with the Franken Mikey. A good match, but Mikey looked beat up and hurt moving around the ring at times. A new commercial aired for ECW Premium Wear, What the Wrestlers Wear, that featured barely covered breasts of Beulah and Francine. Just as it got a bit too precious for its own good, they showed someone in a hot tub with their face covered with hair. The hair got flipped back and Blue Meanie's face was revealed. Styles announced that Shane Douglas had major surgery on his elbow as a result of his match against Bam Bam Bigelow at the pay-per-view. They showed Douglas with a full arm cast. Styles introduced the Stevie Richards-Chris Chetty match by calling Chetty the most talented rookie he's ever seen. The final minutes of the match aired, ending with a Stevie kick. Styles hyped that Richards is eventually going to have to answer to Tommy Dreamer for what he did to him at the pay-per-view. A segment aired with Al Snow from the backseat of a car. Snow said, "I remember what it was like going to the head honchos asking how I would get to the top, how I'd get a push. They'd say, 'Al, give us a little head.' He said he didn't understand what they meant until you came along." The camera then revealed the person he was talking to be the Head, Mannequin Head. A music video aired on Snow and the Head. 2. Chris Condito and Lance Storm beat Axl Rotten and Balls Mahoney and Phil LaFon and Doug Furnas, W/Lance Wright, in a three-way dance to capture the ECW Tag Team titles. Wright said Furnas and LaFon would be dumping the ECW belts in the trash on Raw 2 nights later if they retained the belts. Condito promised to prevent that from happening. Condito told the fans not to cheer for the WWF idiots. A lot of ECW three-way dances consist of random, storyline-less violence. This match told more of a story and had good athleticism mixed with brawling. They aired Taz confronting Brackus. A dozen wrestlers held Brackus back. Styles said Brackus was sent by the WWF, but that Taz has made a career out of making big men look small. Styles concluded the show by thanking viewers for spending an hour with ECW. The show ended with footage of Sandman, Tommy Dreamer, and Beulah coming to the ring for their main event match from ECW Arena against Sabu and Rob Van Dam. The fans sang Enter Sandman as they approached the ring. ECW did a good job capturing the atmosphere that makes their events special. WK. Torch Talk with Sandman Part 6. The ambulance debacle, most memorable and embarrassing moments, whom he admires. In the following sixth and final installment of a Torch Talk with ECW main eventer, Sandman James Fullington, he talks about ECW's approach to being on pay-per-view, the details of the ambulance debacle on the second pay-per-view, his most memorable moment in ECW, some embarrassing moments, and who in the wrestling industry he admires and who he doesn't. The interview was conducted October 13, 1997. Wade Keller, you've been around Paul Heyman week after week for several years now. How has your opinion changed of him over the years? Sandman, he's a super genius. There are a lot of people who have a lot of bad SH to say about Paul, but Paul has never lied to me once. He has treated me very well. He has given me a SH load of different angles, Terry Funk out of the box, the blind angle, the thing with Nancy Sullivan leaving, the thing with Missy Hyatt, the runs with Cactus Jack, and I'm probably missing another 8 things. He's given me so much stuff to do in a couple of years. I would be nothing without Paul. Paul E has always been the same. He's never going to change, just like I'm never going to change. He is a super genius, mad scientist. He's always done things for me. I can't say anything bad about him because he's done so much for my career. Keller, how was the locker room tension different from the first to second pay-per-view? Sandman, no disrespect to any of the guys, but there were guys like Devon Dudley and Bubba Ray pacing. Sabu has always been a pacer before his match. I don't care if there's 8 people out there before his match. Sabu is one of those guys who will walk from one side of the locker room to another, back and forth, to get his match together in his mind and get his body ready. He is a pacer. I've been in that locker room so long I know people's little tendencies. I can go into a locker room before the wrestlers arrive and tell you where they will end up sitting. Sabu sits here, Taz always sits there, I always sit there, Fonzie always goes there. We are like creatures of habit. So the first pay-per-view was a little bit weird. Everybody was a little bit off. It was the biggest night of my career. Me, personally, I hadn't slept the night before. I was up all night and I was drunk when I went to the ring, but I had a great match, so who cares? I probably had more butterflies than I usually did, and I don't want those butterflies to ever leave. I think when those butterflies leave you before you go through the curtain, that's the time to get out of the business. If you're not getting nervous, heck, Terry Funk still gets nervous, too. I've asked him and he said, "Damn right, kid." He told me once you lose that feeling you might as well not go out there anymore. Everything was a lot tenser. The one in Florida I didn't get a handle on because I was outside with the helicopter SH, and I was in the production trucks outside. The feed from the helicopter would only get me so far, so I had to see what the helicopter could do for me. I had to drive around and see what my parameters were so I didn't leave the parameters when they were shooting live to the helicopter. And I had to leave the building 20 minutes before it started because the angle we did with Sabu and Van Dam was at 20-8. The pay-per-view started at 8 o'clock. I was out of the building the whole time until the start of the last match. I couldn't get a judgment on it since I was sitting there drinking beer and driving an ambulance around. They took me in the ambulance, I swear to God, true story. They took me out of the ambulance and I was lying in the back, and the people who were running the ambulance company were really cool. these young kids, and they were all enamored with the wrestling. They weren't really wrestling fans, but they knew they were going to be part of something. I told them they were going to be on live TV. I sent them to 7-Eleven to get me some beer. I wanted to send them for some beer. At 10 of 8 I couldn't go into the 7-Eleven if I just got stretchered out of the building. Somebody would say, "Hey, I just saw Sandman." And they'd say, "What? He just left here in an ambulance?" And they'd reply, "Yeah, he got out of an ambulance in front of the 7-Eleven." I wanted to send one of them in there, but they couldn't do it. I told them to take off their shirt, so they did and went in and got me a case of beer. I had a walkie-talkie so I could hear all of the production guys to know when my cues were. I didn't get to be in the locker room because I was drinking in the van. Keller, did you end up driving the ambulance at all? Sandman, yeah, I was driving it the whole time. I have refused to watch that whole scene on television because all of the boys said things didn't work with the lighting and all that. I don't want to be depressed, so I don't even want to see it. It was a big thing for me and it could have worked out a little bit better. 1. If effin' Lance Wright did his job. Be sure you quote this. He was 100% totally useless. He didn't portray any point I wanted him to, and I sat him down and had told him exactly what I wanted him to say. The kid froze. Happens. I've been in the ring with people who have froze. But don't freeze on me on a F, in live pay-per-view and blow my SH. 1. That was bad. 2. The helicopter was actually supposed to zoom in on me, showing me driving the ambulance. That never got done, either. I wanted to drive around the street. We got a couple of scenarios set up where I would get out and ask somebody for directions. They were going to go back, and in the first section I was going to have people planted around corners. I would ask directions, then drive around some more. Then I wanted them to say, "Oh my God, Sandman is back at the same corner." I was going to get out and cane the F out of the guy who gave directions. I wanted them to say, "Oh, that guy must have given him bad directions." Little SH like that. I don't understand how it can be F in 1997 and a helicopter can't shoot me 2 miles away from the building. I couldn't understand how they couldn't get that done. I was pissed off about that. The whole thing turned out to be really hokey. I don't like hokey SH. I made a mistake, too. I had a costume at my disposal and I probably should have put a cop car behind me chasing me. But that's all retrospect stuff. It all turned out so bad anyway that wouldn't have even made a difference. Killer, were you worried about driving with an open alcohol beverage? Sandman, no, because all of the cops were on my side. I talked to all of the police. I hadn't started drinking until I went to 7-Eleven, so I wasn't drunk or anything like that. I had an open beer, but I wasn't drunk or anything. I had 3 or 4 beers over the 2 or 3 hours I was out there. All of the cops knew exactly what I was doing. I went around with the cops before the show at 3 in the afternoon before anyone else was there. The cops knew exactly what I was going to be doing. I didn't want them to get wigged out while they saw a frickin' ambulance doing 80 miles an hour blowing stop signs that I should have been stopping at. They were all in on it, so everything was cool and I didn't have to worry about it. Keller, if you could change 2 or 3 elements of the way ECW is presented or the way Heyman operates the company, what would they be? Sandman, one of them that I would have changed a couple of months ago is changed now. Guys that are in the first, second, third match have opening style matches. Don't you dare go outside of those ropes in an opening match. If you want to throw the guy out and do a top 8, that's okay, but pick him up and throw him back in. I don't want to see the bullshit railing guys. There has to be a natural progression in the card. A year and a half ago there was blood in the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th matches. The pace has changed. Other than that, I'm on the inside and I'm not looking on the outside, so there might be other people who think things need to be changed. I think we could use some more top-notch fresh talent, but besides that it ain't broke, so why try to fix it? Keller, do you have a single most memorable moment in your ECW years? Sandman, the blind angle I did when I was in the ring wearing the suit with Todd Gordon, and I ripped off the tape and broke the cane over Tommy Dreamer's head. When I pulled Funk out of the box. DC Drake and Funk were involved. That was all my deal. Paul E. gave me an idea and I set it up. I went and had the box made. I knew some guy where I could get one. I had it painted. I made sure me and Funk were wearing the exact same thing so they would get a big pop when Cactus Jack pulled the curtain off of his head. Keller, do you have a most embarrassing moment? Sandman, yeah, when I was in Tampa Bay one time and me and Nancy were walking around the ring. It was the night I caned Mikey Whipwreck 10 times. I'll give you another good story before I got into my embarrassing thing. Everybody knew I was going to cane Mikey that night, and everybody knows how stiff I am. They knew I don't pull a F in punch. I'll stiff you in the forehead with a punch, but I won't stiff you in the jaw. Punch me as hard as you want in my head, but don't slap my ear and puncture my eardrum, and don't stiff me in the jaw or the nose. If you pull a cane shot, everybody in the whole building's gonna know it. The buzz started getting around the locker room that Sandman was going to cane Mikey. Of course Mikey was in that big sympathy role right then. I'm not a tweener yet. I'm still trying to get super heel heat. There are 3 stages in wrestling right now. There is the super heel, the super baby, and the tweener like Austin is. You know how a couple of months ago Austin would open up the show doing a heel thing, and a half hour later come back doing a babyface thing. I love that. I think that was genius because I really think the whole wrestling industry is going to tweeners. A tweener can get over now. If you do it wrong, it can really screw you. But if you do it right, it can be really, really good. Austin is such an unbelievable talent. I think, to me, the guy is one of the top 5 on the planet right now when it comes to interviews, wrestling, gimmicks, everything. He is the man as far as I'm concerned. He's really, really good. So anyway, at the time of this angle, they're trying to still get me over as a super heel, and Mikey is in his underdog role. Before I went to cane him, I think it was Teddy, Rocco Rock, and Johnny Grunge who came up to me. They asked, "You're not going to cane the F out of Mikey tonight, are you?" When 5 or 10 guys came up to me, it was clear everybody was really, really worried about Mikey that night, which is cool because they know how I am. They know this is a 160-pound kid. I wasn't going to beat him like I beat Dreamer, but I still had to lay it in a little bit. So I set it up where I hit the top rope most of the time and barely gave the kid a mark on his back. Dreamer, I made him bleed. I know how to hit you with the cane because there is a string on the cane that if I was to get blood, I can do it. I really took it easy on Mikey. Before that match I was walking around the ring. You know how I stand up on the chair? Well, there was this table there. I went to stand on the chair and I didn't really look at the table really well. This table was made out of a 1/4-inch piece of F in plywood. So I went to the table and the table broke. I F and land on my ass, my beer goes flying, Nancy's just cracking up. I felt like a total idiot. So I got up and just acted a little drunker than I was. I had a lot of fun, but I was totally embarrassed. Here is another moment my wife just reminded me of. We were in Allentown and the match before mine was Dreamer versus somebody, and Dreamer was handed a watermelon. He busted it over somebody's head and it broke in the aisleway. So the last match, I'm in the middle of my run with Scotty, Raven, and I'm the heel who's supposed to make the big save. We're in the middle of the 6-man or something and the heels are beating the SH out of all the baby faces, and I'm supposed to hit the ring really hard, cane the SH out of all of them. My son was in the ring. All the heels were supposed to powder. I came running to the ring. I'm about 10 feet away from the ring. I slip on the watermelon. I flew right into the ring post. I knocked myself out. I knocked myself out on the floor. So I got back and told Scotty I was sorry for not being there right away. I told him I fell, then got back up and got into the ring. My wife said, "No, you didn't." I said, "What do you mean?" She goes, "You knocked yourself out." Scotty jumped on the outside of the ring, throws me in, hands me the cane, and goes, "Start hitting me." So I was out. That's why Raven's so good, is because he covered me there and nobody noticed anything. He covered, he knew what he had to do, and he made it all okay. Those are the little things. You've got to be able to think on your feet in this goddamn business. Crazy SH happens sometimes. Keller, you talked about becoming friends with Todd Gordon. Who else in the business have you become good friends with? Sandman, one time our traveling posse was me, Too Cold, Scorpio, Todd, and Fonzie. Basically my friend in the locker room is Fonzie because Todd's gone now, Scorp's gone. The Pitbulls aren't there. Raven's gone. Those guys were all my friends, guys I would travel with. So now me and Fonzie travel together. I'm friendless right now. A lot of guys don't like me as it is anyway because I beat the F out of people, and I don't care because I'm trying to get the hell over, and if you don't like it, I'll hit you back harder. A lot of guys don't like me in that respect. You'd be lucky to be in this business 40 years and find 5 real friends that you can count on one hand as it is. Me and Anthony, Pitbull 2, have had a falling out. Gary, Pitbull 1 and I are friends, so when he comes back it will be me, Gary, and Fonzie. Keller, it doesn't necessarily have to be someone you share a lot in common with, but who do you admire the most in the business? Sandman, SH, guys like Tommy Dreamer. Me and Tommy pretty much made each other. Me and him were nothing. We did a hell of a program together, a nice run that really put both of us on the map. Guys like Sabu who go out there and don't give a F, about their body. They just love the business and want to get into the ring. Van Dam, too. These guys I'm at war with, you know. Van Dam has knocked me out 2 or 3 times in the last few months. They did their chair things where I was hurt and I can't wrestle, so we get out of our matches by run-ins and having me knocked out right away. I tell them to lay them the hell in. If I have to lay there and be knocked out and stretchered out, there has to be a reason for it. If you don't hit me good, then I look like SH. My wife got pissed off a little bit because I get so many head injuries. Van Dam has knocked me out, but that guy is one hell of a talent. He has it all, top to bottom. Raven, Flair, Arnold Anderson, add them to the list. Diamond Dallas Page. I saw him go from nobody in the last year to a top guy. His match with Hacksaw Duggan was the best of Duggan's career that I've seen. He has really come along. He's had some great matches. I admire that guy because he didn't have it originally and he worked at it so goddamn hard that he made himself get it. A lot of guys can't do that. Either you've got it in this business or you don't. Guys that I don't think understand this business include Taz. He doesn't get it. We're in a steel cage match. It was when Rick Rude turned on me and Dreamer at the ECW arena a few months back when Lawler was in the ring. It was me and Dreamer and a mystery partner. We pulled Rude out against Sabu, Van Dam, and Lawler. Rude turned on Dreamer and knocked him out. Then those guys knocked me out. They cuffed us to the cage. They beat the F out of us and we're both dead. Taz comes in the God ring. Bam Bam Bigelow, Sabu, Van Dam, Shane Douglas, and Chris Condito, the 5 or 6 of them beat the F out of him for 7 to 10 minutes. Before they could get back to the locker room, he's standing in the middle of the ring with his hands raised. He pissed off the whole F in ECW locker room by doing that. Please write that verbatim. Taz does not have a clue when it comes to this business. Keller, you kind of already covered my next question, but is there anybody who you have little or no respect for? Sandman Taz. Taz is the only one. We have such a great locker room. We got Tracy Smothers, who has been around everywhere, probably one of the better workers around. We've got Tommy Rich, who's been around the planet and back and worked with everybody and has drawn more money than I might ever in my lifetime. We've got a good core. There is only one bad apple and it's Taz. Keller, how much longer do you want to be wrestling and what are your goals during that time? Sandman, you think Terry Funk's old? I'm going to be wrestling 10 years longer than him. I want to wrestle until I can't get in that ring anymore. I love this F in business and I might die if I couldn't wrestle anymore. It might kill me, because I love to get in that God ring. I want to wrestle forever and I'm in a good position to do it. I don't have to have SH loads of muscles. I'm kind of just like Terry Funk now, the people's champion. You're not a big super muscle head, you're not the greatest technical wrestler in the world, but he still knew how to go out there and entertain people. I have all the respect in the world for Terry Funk. That guy's a walking, living, F-ing legend. I just felt honored to be on his Amarillo show. For some reason, he likes me. I used to always blow up in all my matches because I was wrestling my matches like I was middle linebacker in the Super Bowl. I was all pumped up, all tense. Finally, when I went to Memphis, I worked with Lawler. He's out there chewing gum, sending all the spots through the referee. He's out there totally relaxed. Terry Funk looked at me and said, Sandman, I used to think I was the slowest worker in this business, but I don't think I'll ever be as slow as you. I took that as a compliment. That guy took me for a ride in Amarillo. We took his trash out. He has a 300-acre ranch, so you walk your trash out to the curb. You load it onto the back of a truck. He drove me around his property. I really respect that guy probably more than anybody in the business. And notes with Wade Keller. The last 45 minutes of Nitro better be a huge wake-up call for WCW. The total lack of responsibility on the part of management themselves and in allowing certain people on camera in the state they were obviously in was astounding. I can only imagine what Bret Hart's first impression was as he watched activities, or at least the result of certain behind-closed-doors activities, make their way onto the live television. The various activities probably enhanced certain performances and certainly hindered at least one performance. But in the end, to anyone paying attention, it was obvious things weren't going right, not just in the minds of certain performers, but in the timing of the Sting Hulk Hogan angle near the end. When the lights went out the first time near the end of the show, they shined a spotlight on Sting in the rafters. Then the lights went out again, and stayed out. Eventually Hulk Hogan called for the lights to come back on and Sting was then standing on the top of the Nitro entryway. Bischoff could be heard swearing aloud about things not going as they were supposed to. His hands were in the air and he could barely control himself. Sting stood around, Hogan stood around, The rest of the NWO stood around. Even Hogan, with a ton of live television experience, began running out of steam as he tried to stall to fill the final 2 minutes. Bischoff was signaling to Sting to come down and approach the ring, just so something would happen. The average viewer may not know exactly what went wrong, but they know the adrenaline rush that usually concludes Nitro just wasn't there. End of newsletter.